Welcome back to Crown's Crypto Cave, and a bit of a different video today as I wanted to go over another psychological concept as I haven't added to this playlist in a while now. As well, I kind of feel like, I said all the things that I wanted to say for the time being. But when I brought back to the live streams this past week, this video, by the way, being recorded in the first or at the end of the first week of March in the year 2021, someone brought up a really good question that made me consider something different. And I wanted to add that to this series now that I've had a little bit more time to kind of deliberate on it and think it through. So with that said, I want to present the concept of what I refer to as like a quantum moment in life. The question was during the live stream, Crown, how do I get rid of this FOMO feeling where I feel like I might miss a trade and then I essentially FOMO into a position that is usually going to turn into a bad position, and then it comes back to bite me in the ass a little bit later, even though I had good intentions at first. Well, this sort of an issue has been attacked in multiple ways on this channel already. I can reference you towards the other videos within this certain playlist, especially with, just documenting a trade journal, keeping yourself accountable to that, and also just understanding that, the market has a plethora of opportunities, and you don't need to take every goddamn one in order to make a living. In fact, if you are really slick with it, I mean, only a few opportunities a year for some people is plenty to go with. So with that said, I want to attack this now again from a different angle because this is something that I've spent a lot of time thinking about, and I think that it doesn't just apply to trading, but it applies to everything in life, as most things trading related actually do apply to everything in life because everything's interrelated, and the way that you do one thing is the way that you typically do all things. So let's get into it right now. Quantum moments in life. Here's the thing. When someone is asking me, Crown, how do I not FOMO, essentially, and that person, has a little bit of experience, the thing is that person already knows the answer. How do I know this? Because I've gone through the same thing. When I was first starting in trading, I had a mentor who taught me how to trade, and I'd kind of like reference him for just about every little thing under the sun. And at first, that's completely fine. When you're in the learning phase, that first 6 months to a year and a half, of course, that's what it's going to be. You don't know anything at that point. You don't really have any good intuition to go off of, and usually your intuition at the beginning is typically bad. It's typically counterintuitive. So with that in mind, there's a point where you get to in your journey, and I've noticed it now after doing this for about 3 years on YouTube and having my own programs and whatnot. I've noticed that people typically hit this point around a year to a year and a half. Some people are a little bit faster, but for the most part, around a year, we'll say, where you have all the information. In fact, you're probably even overloaded with information at that point, and it's time to actually become your own person in that sense. And when you start to take on that role or identity or whatever the hell you want to call it, you are now where the buck stops in trading, in life, in whatever endeavor that you're really trying to do or whatever skill that you're trying to learn. And in that moment, you probably already know what to do. And you asking the questions, in the case of like that live stream, it's like you already know the answer. You know when you're FOMOing, and you know that you should not be doing it, obviously. But we look for external sort of validators to kind of tell us something more profound than what we think that we already know. The problem is that you already know the answer at that point, extremely likely, and that is that quantum moment that I want to refer to. That's the moment where you decide you have kind of like a fork in the road with your life, and you have a million of these a day, by the way. I mean, literally every fucking second is actually filled with these because you're always making a decision. We can get to that a little bit later, but more importantly, at that moment, you either FOMO or you don't FOMO. You know what you're doing, of course. You're a conscious human being, and while sometimes we do feel like we're under the illusion of being out of control of ourselves, that's only a figment of our mind. If you believe that, it will become true, is what I'm trying to say. Meaning that if you also don't believe that, if you take conscious control of those sort of facets of life, then you will be more or less in the driving seat, which is exactly where you want to be and where you need to be, especially in trading and any other thing at a high level. Now, if you're going to go and work like a normal job, that's when you don't have to do these sorts of things because someone else is likely making the decisions, although you will be making them at a different level as well. So I do want to address that because this applies to everything. This literally does apply to everything that you do in life. So when you come to that sort of fork in the road, we can now start to apply the other concepts that are related in this psychological series, of which I would say at that moment, your quantum decision that leads to two basically different futures is, well, one, I FOMO in and deal with the repercussions of that. Whether I feel like it's my fault or not doesn't matter. You are the one who is dealing with the financial consequences, as you're likely trading your own account. Well, at least that's what I assume, unless you've like stolen your parents' money or whatever the fuck evil things that I don't even want to think about right now. Anyways, at the other point, at that junction though, the other sort of fork in the road is saying, hey, no, I know what I'm doing here. I know what's going on. I've seen this before, and I know that in these moments, I need to go back and do X, Y, and Z. For myself, if I'm sharing exactly how I get over these sorts of things, I go back and reference my trade journal, which has my strategy very detailed in there. I actually released a video on this channel as well that goes over trading journals and trading and what I refer to as a trade checklist. If you're in the program, there's a little bit more of a detailed template for that as well there. But that's essentially what I go back to, and that keeps me honest towards my own strategies, because I know, consciously speaking, does this current situation where I might be feeling FOMO, that fear of missing out, so to speak, is this actually what I'm looking for when I deliberetely wrote out my full-on strategy for the purpose of, well, following it, obviously. So it sounds so obvious, it sounds so logical when I say it like this, but here's the thing. Our emotions typically do get in the way, and it's a little bit more difficult in the moment. But if you can stop yourself, if you can keep yourself honest by that and realize that when you start to give into that, once again, you are just furthering yourself down on that path of life. And it's like a boat, right? If you have two boats and they're both going in a straight line, and then one of them makes 1 degree turn, whatever fucking direction, doesn't matter, just not straight, then at some point later on down the road, very, very much later on down the road, they're going to be super, super far away from each other. And that's what these decisions are kind of like, because you're on that boat of life, I suppose. And bad analogy. Now I'm starting to sound like some fucking motivational speaker. That's not what I want to talk about, or that's not what I want to come off like. I hope that this is very attainable, and that this is very relatable, and that this is also very actionable. So, you can imagine that those boats a few years down the road, they're going to be in completely different destinations, just because of that one small decision. Well, the thing is that we're making a million fucking decisions all goddamn day. Right now, I made the decision to make a video instead of drinking my coffee, which actually I really want to drink right now. And that could, make another decision later, because I don't know, maybe it fucks with my digestion, and something to consider. But sometimes do like to dabble in the old devil's water, I guess here. Good. Or another example, as I look in the background over here, I have a game open, and I could be making the quantum decision to be playing a game right now, or I could be making some useful content like this. This would be the right decision, because that is more in line with what I want to do and what I want to give in, I guess, this life. It sounds a little bit more lofty than what it really is, but these are concepts that really struck me and held me when I first started to think about them. So hopefully this is in some way valuable to you. And so when it comes down to trading, you're always making these, because there's a million opportunities in trading, and you can't take all of them. It just can't be done, because one, you're limited by your own equity, and two, you're also limited by your own time as well. And a lot of people I see, especially when they first get into trading, they stay up all fucking night with Bitcoin being 24/7 markets, and waste their night. That's another decision that you really have to be thinking about. Are you going to be in the best mental space in order to be making trades, which requires a lot of cognitive ability? If you are getting a few hours of sleep a night, fuck no. Studies would very much prove that. Go check out, I think, Matthew Walker. He is incredibly enlightening as far as that goes. But you can see where this goes to. You're always making these decisions, and it's not just FOMO, it's everything. It's literally everything. So when you make that decision to give into your FOMO, you are quite literally making yourself very likely more weaker. Yes, every once in a while you will win out on those, but you have to understand that in this game, where it is a game of statistics and probabilities, anytime that you veer off that path, you are inherently fucking yourself long term. If you do not follow your own strategies laid out, and assuming that these strategies, by the way, were back tested in the way that we spoke about, 20 to 30 iterations, showing that you can be profitable over time, then how can you expect anything better? And that's really when you start to mature as a person, is when you're able to identify these moments, and while you might still feel emotionally attached to them, and I know that I do, I certainly know that I do, maybe a little bit less so now that I've been doing it for a long time, but you identify that, you accept it, but you move in the other direction. And that's really when you actually do mature as a person. And so few people can actually do that in this world, that you become the kind of person who can do things that, very few people do. Now, again, this sounds a little bit lofty, and I'm not trying to speak downwards, because I've only done this in like one portion of my life, maybe a couple of portions, like the gym, nutrition, and trading. And there's like a million other things. But still, this applies to everything, as I've been saying. So you can make that decision for yourself, and you can become that type of person who can then go on to do things that typically other people are maybe too scared to do, or they give into their emotions, which again, we all deal with. But because society nowadays does not have the same sort of traditions and rites of passage as the past societies, we don't really like identify that switch from being a boy to being a man, or I don't want to make this like a gendered thing, because now that's like fucking popular nowadays, but a girl to a woman, whatever. What I mean to be is to be your own authority. That's really the key. Call that what you will, being a man, being a woman, whatever the fuck, being your own authority. That's where you want to be, because every time that you give into those sorts of they are more or less externally imposed emotions, you are weakening yourself. And you're taking yourself further off that path that we spoke about with the boats. I mean, assuming that straight line is exactly where you want to go, anytime that you make a decision that's slightly off from there, well, you're fucking yourself long term, and there's no two ways around that. And this concept is honestly, it's kind of scary, because you can take it to infinity, and then you just spend all of your day doing tasks like that. And that's probably what someone like an Elon Musk does, I would imagine. That's what a Bill Gates does. That's what a Tim Cook does, or whoever, these like insanely rich people who have done absolutely incredible things. Yes, I understand, some of them are lizards, blah, 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 whatever, but still, they are pretty damn impressive lizards. I mean, because I don't see anyone else fucking making Windows, put it that way. It's very, it's pretty groundbreaking stuff, especially when it first came out. I understand that the newer generations, they don't have the same appreciation for that, but I grew up without computers for a few years there, and a little bit of non-internet time as well. And I can tell you that was quite the switch up in not just my life, but in pretty much everyone's life around that time. Let me take another sip of this coffee, and we'll get on to the next portion of this video. Okay. So those quantum moments, yes, very, 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 very important for just about every facet of life. You're making them on a second-by-second basis. And when it comes to trading, the way that I get around that, the way that I keep myself accountable to my own logically derived strategies, is by having a trade journal, having a trade checklist, which I deliberately go through, especially anytime that I'm feeling those sorts of emotions. Now that I've been doing it for a long time, I don't do it as much, like referencing it directly, just because it's kind of like ingrained in my brain. But it was a very, very important part of the process to write it down, because that for me was key. It was absolutely critical, because every time that I felt a little bit of, FOMO-ish emotions, if you want to use that angle, I could go back, I could recognize that, and I could say, hey, is this actually meeting up with my strategies? Oh, no, then maybe I don't take this, because I don't want to be a fucking loser. Because that's, essentially where that road I found leads towards. When I first went broke, when I first blew up my account, that was because I was not following those sorts of paths. I was not being accountable to myself, and I thought that I knew better than the market, a lot of other things as well. But it always comes back down to those decisions. You are always in control, especially of these decisions, or at least, that's probably the better way to be thinking about it. And that was when I really had to switch on to not looking, especially not looking for my emotions to give me the answer, but more importantly, going back to what I've actually tested. And that was huge. So these sorts of things, again, they come in every facet of life. We can give the example of the gym, which is what I kind of use in that stream. And it's like, that you should go to the gym. You don't need to say, hey, Crown, what should I do today? Should I go to the gym, or should I fucking masturbate to anime porn again? I don't know. Do you want better health? Do you want fucking 5-second gratification? Another one that I deal with all the time, because I have a fucking massive sweet tooth, is when I go to the store, do I want to buy some beef, or do I want to buy some donuts? Because I fucking love donuts. I also love beef, to be fair, too, but I do have to fight that battle every time that I go in there. and I have to ask myself, and I have to remind myself, hey, I know that I shouldn't eat this. That's obviously the right decision, because one, I don't want to be a little bit less healthy. I know that also I have a lot of food intolerances. It completely fucks up my digestion, and like 5 seconds of mouth pleasure is not worth the next day or two of destroying my bathroom. Not for myself, not for my own sake, but for my girlfriend's sake, because she's the one who has to deal with it for the most part. Anyways, yes. So these sorts of things, again, you can see that they advance into just about every portion of life, which makes them incredibly powerful, because all of these things are interrelated with each other. And the more and more that you actually go down this route, the more and more that you can actually have, because you are taking more and more conscious responsibility for your life, which is very important. And it gives you the best possible route to actually have what you so desire, assuming that you've actually thought about that as well. Perhaps a good thing to be writing down, which I really strongly recommend, just like a life journal. I don't know, do it on your fucking phone. I don't know, talk to it, write it down, whatever the fuck you want to do. I find that really helps with kind of constructing goals and making sure that somewhat on target with those. And of course, it's not going to be perfect at first, but you can adjust as time goes on and you learn more information. That's natural. That's completely fine. And that's to be expected. But to get started, you actually have to, get started. And that's another quantum decision. Am I just going to watch this video and do nothing about it? Okay, well, then what's the point? You just wasted, I don't know, like 15 minutes, 16 minutes of your time. Congratulations. I mean, that's great. I'm happy that you're watching my videos and you enjoy maybe the sound of my raspy lesbian voice, but it's not serving you. So I would really implore you right now, if you are listening this deep into this video and you really are serious about this, pick one thing that you really want to do. Think about it, write it down, and make that decision for yourself that you're going to actually go for it, because you don't know the limits of your capacity until you've actually tested yourself in that way. And realistically, I don't think, I mean, I don't know if there is a limit. I mean, again, I recall back to Elon Musk, who, he's very public with the way that he kind of treats his mind and the way that he thinks about things, and he just doesn't really have like an off switch for work. I kind of feel the same way too. I always have my my charts open. I'm always looking at things, always doing that. Of course, there's certainly more that I could do. In fact, a shit ton more than I can do, because there's just an infinite amount of possibilities, obviously. But to get to a level like that, you can really see that it requires an insane amount of dedication, and that all comes from identifying those quantum moments in life and going towards the ones that will continue on the path that you want to be on. Again, don't put too much emphasis at first on like being absolutely perfect with it, because you can't be, because there's not enough information out and you're just getting started. Of course, that's when you really want to be referencing people who are where you already are, and they will be able to kind of set you straight. But at some point, you will become your own authority, and that's when you have to be able to make those decisions for yourself, and that's when you can start to really progress and do something that that very likely, well, it sounds like you've actually consciously decided on. So I think that I've beaten this horse to death now. I'm just kind of going through my head right now. Exactly, did I get all the points? I think I did, yes. Perhaps I add to this at some later time, but this is kind of a scary concept. Like I said, it's kind of limitless in a sense, but is life, I mean, this is the question that I always come back to. If I'm not doing something that is ultimately feeding into where I want to be in life, is that a good use of time? And am I going to be more or less satisfied with this over time? Well, the answer is always no. It's like, but then again, it's like, are you never going to watch a fucking TV show again because it doesn't play into your, I don't know, world domination plans or whatever the fuck it might be, whatever the hell you want to do. Yes, there might be a little bit of balance there, but then again, that's a whole nother video topic. I don't think balance is something that anyone should actually, I mean, I don't know anyone who's fucking balanced who is successful. I'll put it that way. Successful in the way that it's like special success, like a Michael Jordan, right? I always bring up that example. But my point is that all of these things come together with each other, and all these concepts in this playlist should tie into each other as well. So this one would be sort of like the lead-in one that makes a lot of the other ones possible and solidifies that actionable route. Okay, I think I've got it all out now. I want to wish you the best. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.